My name is Carly Turpel, and welcome to tonight's TED Talk. Tonight, I will be talking to you all about different ways to use your critical thinking skills when purchasing a new car. I think that we have all been victims of seeing a nice looking car on the highway and thinking about purchasing a new car. However, there are many factors that come into purchasing a new vehicle. Sometimes we may want a new car, but not necessarily need it. And tonight I'm going to explain that when we're using our critical thinking skills, it's important that we pay attention to things that we need instead of things that we want. And I'll go back with a flashback here. And when I was younger, I would tell my mom that I needed a new pair of basketball shoes. And at the time, I probably had about 4 pairs of basketball shoes. And she would say, "No, Carly, you want a new pair of basketball shoes. You don't need a new pair of basketball shoes." So this is something that I carry with me. And now that I've been out of college and I've been living on my own and paying for all these different bills, I've realized that there are many things that I may want, but not necessarily need. So when we're talking about a new vehicle, it's important that we first determine, do we need the vehicle? Is my car a reliable car? If not, I may want to look into a new vehicle. So first, we want to determine our budget. In my case, I'm a full-time student right now. I have a full-time job and a part-time job. I pay monthly rent, heating bill, electric bill, oil. I pay my gas, my car bill, my phone bill. So for someone who just graduated college, that may seem like a lot to handle. And fortunately, a couple years ago, I did need a new car, and I took the proper steps and did proper research, determined what type of budget would be reasonable for myself as a student, and thankfully I had my parents there to help me think of different alternatives if this didn't work. So in any situation, whether you just won the lottery or you're really trying to get by month to month with your bills, but you really need a new car, first we want to take the first step and determine our budget. So like I said, I'm a full-time student. I have 2 jobs. I don't need a car right now. I have a car. But let's just say you need a car. We need to determine your budget. So one thing that we know is that cars come in extremely different price ranges, especially if we're talking a new car versus a used car. So it's important to think about a reasonable price range so you're not hurting your budget if you do decide to take that financial step and purchase a new vehicle. So a good rule of thumb is to budget more than 25% of your monthly household income for all the cars in your household. So let's just say it's just you and your household. So you're living by yourself. You would budget a little more than 25% of your monthly household income, which should include the car payment, your operating costs, gas, and car insurance. Second, we want to narrow down a list of cars. I think a lot of people, when they first research a new car, they get excited. They're happy that they're going to be purchasing a new car, and they tend to go a little bit overboard and have about 15 cars that they might possibly want. We want to narrow down that list to a few cars, maybe 3 or 4 cars. Next, you want to do your research on these cars. Doing your research is crucial in any aspect, problem solving, coming up with a new idea, um, implementing a new idea at work. You want to do your research, and it's very important when you're making this big financial decision. You want to make sure that you do your research on this new car. The third step we can take, if you do have outside resources, I suggest you use outside resources. Outside resources with buying a new car is if you have a family member that has a particular car you're looking at, how do they like it? What aspects come with the car, such as does it have four-wheel drive? Are you in a state where a car needs to be able to plow through snow easily, get you to point A to point B if you're traveling to work over a 2-hour commute daily? You want to take these things into consideration, especially when we are dealing with a big financial purchase such as this. So another critical thinking step we can take when purchasing a new car is we want to look long term. If you're in a position where you can purchase a new car for about $35,000, that's great. There's some people who can't purchase a new car like that. Some people are in a tight budget. They need something to get by maybe 3 to 4 years until they can save enough money to either trade the car in or buy a better car later on. So we want to think about the future. How old are you? Do you plan on having a family soon? If you plan on having a family with children, maybe it's best to look into something that has great safety ratings, has airbags all around the car, has enough space for you and your future family to where you don't have to think about purchasing a new car when you have children, because then more finances come into that. So it's good to keep in mind things like that. We want to use our critical thinking skills to think outside the box, think of different alternatives we may run into with purchasing a new car. Another thing to keep in mind is, are you an active person? If you live in the city of Boston and you don't do any outside activities, would it be necessary for you to get a Dodge Ram 2500 pickup truck driving through Boston every day to work? Probably not. So if you're in a different location, you want to think about, is this car going to be good on gas when I go to work? Is this car a good utility vehicle if I'm a landscaper? Or if I like outside activities? For myself, I personally like to travel to different states. I am a bit of an outdoor enthusiast, and for myself, I would look into a car that has ample space, that has a roof rack, that has four-wheel drive to get me from state to state, especially with the New England weather. That's something you want to think about. So taking all of these considerations, it's very, very helpful when looking into a new vehicle. I mean, like I said earlier, if you're in the position to buy a new car every couple of years, that's great, but there's people who can't do that. And if you're one of those people who is saving up enough money and you've been needing a new car for a year now, you need to take these steps and really think about the best option for you. Cars are something that we use daily, and your safety and your time getting to point A to point B is all a factor that comes down to everything. especially like I said, long term. You want to do your research. Does this car have good safety ratings? Is it good on gas? If you wanted to sell it in a couple years, how much money could you make back? These are all things that you want to think about. Also, one thing that I have noticed with these talks in the classes that I've been taking is the pros and cons. What are the pros and cons to each vehicle that you're looking in? If the car has more cons than pros, but it's the best looking car, you may be a little upset because it's your favorite car, but is it the right decision for you? So these are all things that we want to keep in mind, especially as we get older and we have many things that we need to pay for. It's important that we look into different aspects such as cars, homes, any big financial decision that we make. It's important to really take a step back and evaluate what you're buying. Like, you could walk into a gas station and want to buy a piece of candy. You're still going to think about, how much money do I have in my wallet? Do I need to buy anything else? Is this all the cash that I have on me? Each thing that we purchase, a critical thinking method is involved. So hopefully with these steps and these tools that I've listed, if anyone out there decides to purchase a new vehicle or thinks about leasing, these are all great things to keep in mind. So in the end, when you do go to that dealership to test drive that car, make sure you have done all your research. Make sure that you take your time getting into the vehicle, adjust the mirrors. You may be excited. You're getting a new car. I've been waiting for this for months. I've done all my research. We tend to get excited in our head and we forget that the salesperson next to us is there to answer all of our questions. So it's important to take a breath, come prepared, do your research. If you have questions, which everyone should when purchasing a big thing like this, a car or a home, it's important that we talk to someone who's there for us and ask them, what are the benefits of buying this car? Is my money going to be used well when I'm buying this car versus this car? Am I going to be safer in this car versus this car? These are all things you want to take into account. Like I said, taking a step back, thinking about what this car has to offer versus this car, listing your pros and cons, doing your research, using outside sources such as a mechanic, friends, family, looking at other people who have owned cars such as the ones you're looking at. It's important to use those critical thinking skills and determine if buying a new car right now, used, new, or leasing, if it's the best thing for you. So I hope that with this talk, if any of you are thinking about buying a new car or leasing, I hope that these critical thinking skills have helped with your search. Thank you and good night.